evening. Thank you for attending the Town of Riverhead Planning Board. Today is Thursday, August 4th. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I hope that everybody's feeling nice and cool in here today because it was a hot one out there today. So, okay, we do not have any public hearings this evening, so let's start with our discussion items, and we're going to begin with Dish Wireless at 1035 Pulaski Street with Heather Trojanowski.
For the record, Heather Trojanowski, site plan reviewer, and we do have a representative from Dish Wireless. If you could just state.
Dan Powers, Site Acquisition Manager.
So this is another cell tower application, site plan application proposing to modify an existing wireless communications facility that is on a town-owned water tower. The proposed modifications will be made on the town-owned water tower. It's situated on a 1.4 acre parcel, more particularly identified as Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-124-1-27, and it's located at 1035 Pulaski Street, Riverhead. The facility is presently improved with a 180-foot, 1-inch tall water tower with existing wireless equipment of multiple carriers, including AT&T, Sprint, and T-Mobile, mounted with equipment mounted at 141 feet above ground level, as well as a ground-mounted water district shed and a wireless communication shed. Subject parcel is located within the PRC Peconic River Community Zoning Use District. And the proposed scope of work for Dish includes the co-location of 3 new antennas at 120 feet above ground level and 6 new remote radio head units. Ground level work includes the installation of an equipment cabinet, a GPS unit, and associated conduit and connectors. All other existing antennas, equipment will remain. We did receive a completed owner's endorsement signed by the superintendent of the Riverhead Water District. Site plan application and the physical plans were referred to the Water District on July 25th, 2022. A condition of approval prior to the issuance of a building permit will be review and approval by the Riverhead Water District and their consulting engineer H2M. The proposed action is unlisted pursuant to SECRA without the need for coordinated review. So I'm recommending that the planning board assume lead agency without the need for coordinated review, issue a negative declaration as no significant environmental impacts are expected as a result of this application. And I have a resolution on today to classify the same, assume lead agency, issue a neg deck, and grant administrative approval subject to conditions. We did receive an RF EME analysis report, and that included all proposed and existing antennas and equipment for all carriers on the tower. The analysis showed that even with the proposed Dish Wireless transmitter equipment, the EM exposure at ground level will be 3.2%, which does not exceed the maximum permissible exposure levels for FCC public and occupational standards. We also did receive a structural and mounting analysis report that analyzed both the existing water tower structure and the proposed antenna mount systems. It determined that the overall tower structure will have adequate structural capacity to support the proposed loads. No modifications are required at this time. The new antenna mount systems were within acceptable tolerances for stress and deflection, and they will be able to support the proposed antenna configuration. Did you have any questions?
All the appropriate people with licenses have all stamped and given us all the plans?
Yes, the structural and mounting analysis report was prepared by K&B Design, analyzed by Ruderup Paul, and it was stamped by Stephen A. Bray, who is a professional engineer. And I do have the qualifications for the person who, Henry Giltum. He prepared the RF report. He has been employed with Dish Wireless for over 15 years, and he is an RF engineer for the company.
Just for figures, how many are on that tank?
Currently, Dish does not have any. They're co-locating just 3 antennas.
parts equipment is to be removed according to the?
Yeah, they do have, I'd have to take a look at the building permit application. Sprint does have a current building permit open to remove any of the antennas that they have on that structure. I'm just gonna take a look at the RF analysis to give you a better idea of how many antennas are on the tower currently.
It's gonna be on the first carrier, I think. Maybe the same for the second.
Do you have that information?
I'm trying to see if I have it handy. All right.
Yeah, so based on the chart, the antenna table, there are 60 items there, but I don't believe they are all individual antennas, because Dish is only proposing 3 antennas. It looks like Sprint
That's
might,
3 per sector, correct?
it's 3
Which
per
would be
sector,
9.
which is 9. And then it looks like Sprint, the ones that are going to be removed, they have about 18 on the tower, and those will be removed under the current building permit. AT&T, they have 26 through 42, so, yeah, so totaling right now, there are 60, based on the RF report that I have in front of me, but all of the Sprint antennas are being removed.
Thank you.
Dish is only requiring 1 antenna per sector because Dish is rolling out a new network, so all they're building is 5G. A lot of the older carriers, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, they obviously want the 5G technology as well, but they're still beholden to their older customers with 4G and older technology. So they'll need 3 to 4 antennas per sector. 1 is good enough to get us off the ground running here.
Okay.
Our antenna profiles are going to be a lot smaller than any of the existing carriers.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Same with our equipment space.
Yes.
Not quite as visible, but it's also a smaller footprint.
Okay. Very good. Does anyone have any? No? All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Pipchinsky Lot Line Modification, again with Heather Trojanowski.
Maybe you can just state your names.
Stacy Pipchinsky.
Hi, Joseph Pingataro, I'm the architect for Ms. Pachitsky.
Planning Department's in receipt of a minor subdivision application for a lot line modification between 2 parcels, more particularly identified as Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 118 for 5.10 and 118 for 5.7. Both properties are located on River Road, the first of which being 211 River Road in Calverton, and the second being 2023 River Road in Calverton. Both are located within the Riverfront Corridor zoning use district. So the application seeks to convey 3.861 acres, or 168,186 square feet of unimproved land from 211 River Road, that's Suffolk County Tax Number 118 for 5.10, to 2023 River Road, which is Suffolk County Tax Number 118 for 5.7. 211 River Road has an existing area of approximately 13.81 acres, and 2023 River Road has an existing lot area of approximately 1.15 acres. So as a result of the proposed lot line modification, 2011 River Road would have an area of 9.95 acres, and 2023 River Road would have a total area of 5.01 acres. So after the lot line modification, both lots will conform to the lot size requirements for the RFC zoning use district, which is an 80,000 square foot lot size. And this SECR classification is considered a type 2 pursuant to SECR. No further environmental view is required, so I do have a resolution on to classify SECR, and I have a second resolution on today to schedule a public hearing. I did do referrals for this application and received comments back from Central Pine Barrens, the consulting engineer Vinnie Gaudiello. I did forward Eileen Powers, the planning board attorney, the title report. I am waiting for a commentary back from that. Suffolk County Planning Commission, in a letter dated April 25th, 2022, considered this application to be a matter for local determination. The property owner has applied to Suffolk County Department of Health Services. We're waiting on correspondence from them. And they also already obtained a permit from New York State DEC for the proposed lot line changes only.
The ag lot that's being created, the development rights have been extinguished on that?
Yes, the Pine Barrens, there is a conservation easement on the whole of that parcel. I'm not sure if you're familiar, it was once one large parcel, the Warner Duck Farm, and that's when the conservation easement was created. They then did a 3-lot minor subdivision, so the 3 lots created out of that all were subject to the conservation easement and its restrictions. So the existing lot for 2023 River Road is actually an out parcel. So that area would not be subject to the restrictions, but the land that they are taking from 2011 would be subject to all the conditions, and they're aware of that. You guys have anything to add?
Looked to me, when I visited the site, it looked to me like you have like an operation and you have trees, you growing trees or whatever there.
Right now, it's my grandparents' property. They own the farm, and they have a few trees back there. Yeah, they use it for some agricultural purposes.
Okay.
And that would be allowed if they
Sure.
continued to, yeah, that would be allowed for the Pine Barrens. They could also, you know, as the definition of agriculture is stated in the Pine Barrens Act, anything under that, they would be allowed to do on the conservation easement as long as it's considered non-development.
And where would the garage be located?
So we're not proposing any work at this time. It's just a lot line modification.
Initially, they had come in with proposed improvements, but that, when you do a lot line modification, you have to just show existing conditions. So in the future, after the lot line modification is complete, should they decide to do a detached garage, the Pine Barrens did say that that's considered non-development because it's accessory to the
Right,
residential
I was looking at,
structure.
it says the proposed new garage, that's why we didn't see
Yeah, I
anything.
referred it to all of the agencies when I first received the application, just to initiate the coordinated review, and then I did receive revised plans. And the Pine Barrens said, as far as the lot line modification is concerned, they consider it non-development.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, I think we're ready to move forward with a public hearing on this.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Jason's Vineyard Outdoor Patio with Matt Charters. Hello, Matt.
You have the owner here today as well.
Hello. Good, how are you?
It's Matt Charters, planner, Town of Riverhead. Just if you can introduce yourself.
Alethea Conroy, Alethea Demianos Conroy. Alethea Conroy,
Sorry, spell your first name.
Aletheia Conroy.
Okay, so we have an administrative site plan application. This is to legalize a 1,200 square foot, paved patio that's been existing on this property at 1785 Main Road in Jamesport. That's Jason's Vineyard since on or about 2013, maybe even a little bit before that, as well as a 12 by 18 foot gazebo.
A little louder, Matt?
A little louder? Sure. To legalize a gazebo as well, and they're going to be putting in additional parking to accommodate for the additional space being utilized by the public in that patio area. They did the calculation based on, I think it's mass assembly without fixed seats, which is 1 per 100, so that's an additional 31 stalls on site. It's going to be gravel rather than paved. They will need to do an additional handicap space, because this is, the total amount of parking on site will be between 76 and 100 spaces. It's been to the town engineer. They'll need to go back only to finalize the review. I've gotten revised plans, because originally this was shown as being sort of grass overflow parking, but we asked that it be
Any
improved with
change in the
gravel.
operations or just legalization of the deck?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's some pictures in there. Like I said, this is just to rectify an existing condition. We've also asked that they move the dumpster, which is not in a conforming location. They'll need it to be screened as well. Other than that, there's really not too much. I do have a resolution prepared for approval, and this is type 2% to Secra.
Okay, I don't see any issues with this.
Good.
George?
Questions, anybody?
No?
Good?
Okay. That was painless.
Painless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's move on to Holly Tree Lane minor subdivision with Greg Bergman.
Thank you. For the record, Greg Bergman, Riverhead Planning Department, and we have Vince Calvosa here representing the application. What we have is a minor subdivision application which is seeking to subdivide 3 individual parcels. The parcels right now have a total lot area of 12.96 acres. The proposed subdivision proposes a clustered subdivision which would result in the creation of 4 new single-family residential lots, as well as the creation of an 8.55 acre conservation area which would be limited to agricultural uses. The proposed minor subdivision is a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA under Town Code Section 225-12B1, as the 4-lot minor subdivision conforms to the dimensional requirements of the RB80 zoning district. As I said, the application consists of 3 separate parcels identified as Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 69-3-8, lot number 9, and lot number 62. They are located on the north side of Peconic Bay Boulevard. The total properties consist of 2 roadways. One is known as Seaman Road, which is on the western side of the property, which is a 25-foot wide private right-of-way, and Holly Tree Lane, which is located near the center of the property, which is a 50-foot wide right-of-way, a portion of which was incorporated into the Town of Riverhead highway system pursuant to New York State Highway Law, Section 189. I did, on page 2 of the report, I did kind of separate the different parcels on that diagram so you can clearly identify where the right-of-ways are, as well as the remainder of the property. So the entirety of the properties are described in the legal description of the property owner that was submitted with the title report, and they were conveyed to the current owner from deeds from 1971. There is a little bit of confusion, which I was still trying to discuss with Eileen as to exactly how they identify on the Suffolk County tax maps. Like I said, while Seaman Road, that 25-foot wide right-of-way, is shown on the legal description, in the Suffolk County tax books, it actually doesn't have a tax map number, and it's kind of shown as a unparcelized parcel. So it's just a little bit of confusion as to how that happened, but I don't believe it'll affect the subdivision going forward. The property is presently vacant with the exception of the improved road surfaces of Seaman Road and Holly Tree Lane. In terms of conformance with the zoning, the yield map submitted by the applicant identifies a 50-foot wide right-of-way with a cul-de-sac, 25,000 roughly square foot recharge area, and 4 lots which conform to the dimensional requirements of the RB80 zoning district. On the yield map, they're shown in sizes ranging from 85,950 square feet through 150,536 square feet. The yield map has excluded the portions of Holly Tree Lane, which was incorporated into the town highway system, as well as Seaman Road, so those are not considered contributing to the lot area. So basically, that leaves the remainder, about 11.56 acres, as contributing to the yield of the subdivision. It is considered a minor, so they are not required to show that 55-foot wide right-of-way that would be required for a major. The application does require a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's actually referenced in 2 sections of code for dealing with cluster subdivisions. The proposed agricultural lot is 8.55 acres in size, and there's 2 sections of code that require a minimum of 10 acres for that agricultural reserve. Just in terms of support for the application, I have spoken with the applicant on this. I do believe this proposed subdivision is really in keeping with the spirit of what a cluster subdivision is. It's just due to the configuration of the lots and the way it's laid out, to preserve 10 acres would shrink these lots down to probably 15 or 20,000 square feet. You'd really be creating small lots. So as I said,
None of these lots are landlocked, correct?
so they're not landlocked. They have access via Holly Tree Lane. Holly Tree Lane, the improved portion of that roadway, which I'm getting to now, is the only portion of that road that was incorporated into the highway system was the improved portion that is traveled. I did include the town board resolution from 2014, which incorporated that roadway into the highway system. There were some conditions, so basically the highway superintendent at the time was not required to widen it to the 3 rods, which is the standard width of a roadway, and that the width of the public roadways shall be determined by the extent of the traveled portion. So again, basically, the improved portion of Holly Tree Lane was incorporated into the town right-of-way system, and it did not actually convey ownership of that roadway. So for lack of a better term, it basically put a permanent easement over that, where the town would provide services including paving, snow plowing, and the like.
What's a rod, 22 feet?
I believe a rod is 16 and a half. Yeah, 16 and a half. So as I said, again, Seaman Road is a private right-of-way. That's the one that's not parcelized on the Suffolk County tax map books. It doesn't have any tax map number. I did speak with the applicant. He should provide, because there are properties along Seaman Road. It's presumed that they have right-of-ways contained within their deed and easements of ingress and egress. So I would just ask that the applicant provide those deeds for the houses along Seaman Road to just demonstrate if there are any other considerations for those properties that would need to be taken into consideration under the subdivision.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
For Holly Tree, that is now going to become a dead-end street because there'll be a cul-de-sac.
So the cul-de-sac is shown just for demonstrating purposes of yield. There is a sketch plan, which is, the sketch plan is what the development would result in. So right now, Holly Tree Lane is a dead end. There's kind of a dirt road at the north end of it, which proceeds to the farm field to the north. So what the sketch plan proposes, in order to comply with Appendix D of the Fire Code, they are basically going to create, it's like a 130-foot long, it's going to extend 130 feet to the north from where it currently dead ends, and there is going to be a turnaround so that in the event of a fire down at the end of that road, an emergency vehicle could pull in and then turn around without having to back up, 450 feet down Holly
Right.
Tree Lane.
My concern is for Seaman Road, that now would be the sole access for the preserved farmland.
So that is, I did raise that question a little bit further on in the report. Right now, Seaman Road, there's some light gravel on it. It's not really improved to any significant extent. So I did make that recommendation that there should become some consideration to providing some kind of surface for Seaman Road. If this is going to be an active agricultural parcel, it's presumed there may be heavy tractors. There could be trucks if they're, taking deliveries or picking up farm material. So there should be some consideration, being that that is the sole access to the farm parcel.
Right, I'm familiar with the area, and I know that there are a few of the residents on that street that have maintained that road for years and years and years. I was hoping that maybe the applicant would be able to address possibly helping out with that, ensuring that their road is not going to be damaged. It's a really nice little private area in Jamesport, and I would not like to constantly see, a lot of traffic going up and down there, and I really think that they
Maybe a
should.
bond,
I'm sorry?
bond it,
Bond it? Well,
bond the road, improvements.
I would like to see.
So I will, without Eileen Powers here, I don't want to tread too far into, but it is a private roadway. I believe those houses along Seaman Road do have rights of ingress and egress, but it is owned by, it is contained within the deeds for, the applicant, and the property owner does own that.
Okay.
Those property owners along Seaman Road do have access. But
I
again,
would
that,
just
that,
like consideration.
again, that was
given
something, that was a
piece.
concern that I raised, because there will be an increase, again, that will be, like you said, the only access to that farm parcel. Right now, as I believe I have spoken with one of the residents down on Holly Tree Lane, I believe right now, the majority of the farm traffic is going down Holly Tree Lane because it is a wider roadway, does have better improvement. So I mean, I think that would be something for the board to, put some kind of condition on, and I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
So to the cluster requirements, there are some things in Chapter 301, Article LIV, that the planning board needs to consider in its review of the proposed cluster subdivision. Among them, the location of wooded areas. In Figure 6 on the staff report, I did highlight the existing wooded areas on that conservation parcel. There's roughly 2.5 acres of wooded lands, which are generally located along the eastern and northern property boundaries. The limit of those wooded areas should be shown on a revised plan. And I would recommend that those wooded areas be retained. There should be a non-disturbance buffer. That would help to mitigate any kind of dust and noise that would happen from agricultural activities taking place on the property with those residents to the east on St. Mary's Drive. The plans do need to show the general stormwater tributary area and the extent and direction of overland drainage. Basically, the plan needs to identify that. They need to show topography on that property and identify the tributary areas, as well as ways to manage that stormwater from the farm field. The town code does require that the plan protect to the maximum extent practicable the portion of the tract preserved for agricultural use. So basically, the entirety of the portion that's being preserved is currently being used for agriculture. It's really consistent just with the existing use of the property. Plans to reduce the nuisance between residential and agricultural uses, which I said would be accomplished by maintaining that wooded buffer. Demonstrate compatibility of the cluster plat with existing residential development and agricultural uses. Really, the residential lots are clustered and located near existing residential lots. The agricultural lot to the north is contiguous with another piece of preserved property to the west, so I believe it does that pretty well. There's really no impacts to scenic vistas. I mean, again, there would be two contiguous farm parcels. The development would not really be visible from any public right-of-ways or anything, so there should not be any impacts to scenic vistas. And again, the one thing, the requirement that they need to go to the zoning board for is the cluster subdivision to lay out the agricultural area, a minimum of 10 acres. Again, it's 8.55 acres. I think the spirit of the cluster is sufficiently captured by the proposed sketch. And it does preserve a minimum of 70% of the prime agricultural soils. They are proposing to preserve 73.9% of that area, so it meets that, so there's no variances required from the planning board or the zoning board. And then just speaking to the open space, I've spoken to the applicant. The intention is to have that farm parcel privately owned. It will be operated in agricultural production. There are no plans to dedicate it to the town or any other conservation body, be it like the Peconic Land Trust, et cetera. So the planning board can just, impose conditions on that. Again, being that the subdivision, the yield of the entire subdivision is 4 lots. There should be a condition in there that there's no there's no residential use on the agricultural parcel. It's really for farm structures, if they need a barn, if they need, structures for agricultural use. What's that?
That's what that sounds like.
There's no commercial use, though, that will be trying to be put
No, I
down
mean,
there.
the zone is located RB 80, so there really would be no allowance in the code for any kind of commercial use, like anything like retail sales or, wine tasting or anything like that. It allows agricultural production. The RB 80 zoning district doesn't allow agricultural operations or, those accessory uses that would be commensurate. So it would be agricultural production. I did refer it to the Riverhead Water District. It is located within an existing Riverhead Water District extension. They'll obviously need approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. I did refer the plans to the Suffolk County Planning Commission as well as the town's consulting engineer, and I'm awaiting their comments. the planning board, I do have a resolution to classify it as a type 2, so that they can begin the application with the health department. But before this board moves forward, the plans need to be revised to show that information which is required by the town code, and they would need to obtain the necessary variance from the zoning board.
So how long is it in front of the Suffolk County Planning Commission?
I just referred the plans to them. I would, without speaking to, I would anticipate this would be a matter for local determination.
Which most everything is.
Most of it is, so I would wait for their comment. We wouldn't take any action before we get a determination from the
Interesting
planning
to see
commission.
if they maybe break the ice a little.
Yeah.
Okay, you answered my questions, thank you.
Good.
Good.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just spell your last name?
Calvosa, C-A-L-V-O-S-A.
Let's continue on with Greg and go on to HK Ventures.
Well, no, it's the secret. Yeah.
Good evening.
Evening.
How's everyone?
I like your tie.
Thank you.
So we are here to discuss the final environmental impact statement for a site plan application known as HK Ventures. This is an application that's been before the planning board for a little over 2 years now at this point. Back in June of 2021, by resolution number 21-064, the planning board accepted the draft environmental impact statement for the project. The project sponsor has submitted a final environmental impact statement dated May 2022. There have been some changes that have been made to the project as follows. The height of the proposed buildings has been changed from 29 feet in the DEIS to 38 feet in the FEIS. This proposed condition does require relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals for exceeding the maximum allowable building height of 30 feet, where the previous proposal did not. The proposed impervious surface coverage within the site plan has been reduced from 71.07% in the DEIS to 65.51%. The proposed condition requires relief from the ZBA. The previous proposal did require relief as well, but the amount of requested relief has been reduced by about 5%. Contiguous landscaping has been reduced from 23.19% to 23.15% due to modification of curb radii. Does not require relief from the zoning board for that aspect. They've redesigned the angle of the loading docks on the east side of the development to allow for safer truck movements. And there's been modifications to proposed lighting poles within the central drive aisle. They have been removed, and they're now proposing building-mounted lighting along that center drive aisle. So, to the issue of the building height, the proposed buildings have been changed from flat roof buildings with a height of 29 feet in the DEIS, and now they're proposed to have a sloped roof with a height of 34 feet at the eave and 38 feet at the peak. The change in the building height is proposed in order to allow for minimum 30-foot clear height within the buildings to allow for greater flexibility and efficiency for industrial tenants. The FEIS that was submitted does include an area variance consistency analysis, which is required under New York Town Law 267B. So understanding that the document that the board has reviewed has not yet been accepted, the board must consider the analysis and the extent of the information that is contained within both the DEIS and the FEIS. Both of those documents combined, that's the totality of the information. So the board is directed to believe whether it finds that the analysis is sufficient for the board to make a finding on the document. So I did, in the report that I sent to you, I kind of clipped out renderings from the DEIS. That DEIS contained renderings of the flat roof 29-foot building from a number of vantage points, including along Middle Country Road, the EPCAL recreational bike trail, as well as north and south facing aerial vantage points. And they basically took the renderings of the new buildings with the maximum 38-foot height from those same vantage points. So in the report, what you'll see is the first rendering is the flat roof. The next rendering is that same vantage point, which shows the peak roof from a number of vantage points. So the board should consider the following information regarding the height and the visual impacts. So I do note that within the industrial C zoning use district, the minimum front yard setback is 30 feet from the property line. As the site plan is currently proposed, the front yard setback to the building is 124.7 feet. And I do note that that 124.7-foot setback is to the commissary, which is at the front of the site. And that commissary only has a height of 18 feet. The proposed front yard setback to the main portion of the building is about, on the east side of the property is 140 feet, while on the western side of the property, it's about 200 feet from the property line, which is nearly 5 times that which is required by the town code. The proposed rear yard setback is 195 feet from the property line, where the minimum required rear yard setback is 50 feet, which is about 4 times which is required by code. The buildings have a north-south orientation, which results in only 100-foot frontage of each building, which is facing the roadway. And the plans also included a landscaping plan, which includes planted berms to help screen the proposed development from the town, state right-of-way. Given the state of the information contained within the FEIS, staff does recommend that there is sufficient information contained within the totality of the document for the board to make a finding on the document. The board could, in its discretion, require additional analysis, but I'm not sure what that analysis would look like other than renderings of what the site's going to look like. Regarding water supply, the applicant has been working pretty diligently, and I have had a lot of conversations with the Riverhead Water District. There is a map and plan report included in the FEIS, which outlines the fees and the requirements necessary for the Riverhead Water District to supply the proposed development. That map and plan was developed by H2M. And that map and plan states that there will not be a negative environmental impact regarding water availability, and it would not impact the surrounding areas. There was initially plans there were plans developed to have on-site wells to do on-site water supply. Those plans have been abandoned, and they are pursuing supply through the Riverhead Water District. The FEIS did do some soil sampling, which was done in accordance with the New York State DEC's Division of Environmental Remediation Technical Guidance. Without getting too into it, they did find some shallow soils, generally 0 to 2 feet below grade, which contain some pesticides and/or metals, which is typical with former agricultural use of the property. Approximately 95,000 cubic yards of material on that site were affected by those characteristics. So they're basically broken down into 4 different categories. Soils that do meet the unrestricted use soil cleanup objectives. Those soils do not require special handling. They can basically just reuse them on site. They can take them off site. They do not need to be handled in a special way. There are soils that meet the general fill requirements. Those can either be reused in the same excavation or used as fill in other parts of the subject property, or they can be transferred off-site and used in fill at another site in accordance with DEC guidelines, or disposed of at a properly permitted facility. There are soils that exceed general fill requirements, which can be reused in the same excavation or as fill material on other parts of the property, as long as they are covered with a impervious surface or a minimum of 12 inches of soil. Or again, they can be transferred off-site or disposed of in accordance with DEC guidelines. And then there are soils that exceed restricted fill requirements that, if disturbed, those soils will need to be segregated and disposed of off-site. The FEIS did contain an updated traffic study dated February 3rd, 2022, which found that a traffic signal had been warranted by the New York State DOT at the site access driveway on Middle Country Road. Based upon the TIS data, Phase 1 of the proposed development is not anticipated to have a significant negative impact, and Phase 2 of the proposed development is not expected to have a significant impact, although they do recommend minor timing modifications to the State Route 25 and Edwards Avenue intersection. I do note, and it is called out in the report, that that intersection is slated to undergo a pretty significant improvement by the New York State DOT. Per their plan, the estimated time for completion for the Edwards Avenue State Route 25 improvements is sometime in 2023, and that's per the draft design report from the DOT. So realistically, by the time this thing is built and operational, that intersection should be redesigned. So the next steps in terms of SECRA, if the board accepts the FEIS, it'll be noticed in the New York State DEC's Environmental News Bulletin. It will be distributed to involved agencies and made available for public review for a minimum of 10 days before the board can make a finding statement. And then I just detailed some requirements for the finding statement, that it must include certain requirements. So that's where we're at on HK Ventures. If the board has any questions, we do have the applicant here.
Of course, the great concern is the traffic. There's a lot going on in this area, and traffic is going to be increasing a lot. And this study was done February. It doesn't, I don't think that it's a fair impact study for that time of year for the increased traffic that we have in the summer. I don't know if any of the other board members would like to expand or,
Concur with that.
I'm sorry?
I have to concur with that. February's not the time to do it. We should be doing it later on during the year when there's some real traffic. Isn't any traffic in
The only issue with doing it during the summer, of course, you don't have the school.
Sir, just before you speak, just a second.
Sorry, Keith Brown, attorney for the applicant, Brown Altman Leo, 538 Bird Hollow Road, Suite 301 West, Melville, New York, 11747. So as I was saying, the problem with doing it in non-summer months is you don't have the school bus traffic generated. So that's why it was done during February when school was in session.
Yeah, the initial study was done,
Give me a name for the record.
excuse me, Scott Johns, HK Ventures,
So Greg, we got time.
sorry to spell your last name? Johns.
Thanks.
So the initial study was done towards the end of the summer last year, I believe, and then it was the request from the board for the secondary study that was done in February.
And in addition, DOT has approved the traffic signal out front.
Well, even the prior traffic study would not be accurate because that would have been done at a time in the height of COVID, where people were not traveling as they are again today.
Which
I'd
is why
like to
we went back
review
out
that
there.
again. I don't know if you have something on that, Greg?
What's that?
It looks like in these photos, this is all tractor trailers that are coming in and out of here.
It won't just be tractor trailers. The way the units are designed is they will probably be, well, different kinds of vehicles, whether it be passenger vehicles, pickup trucks, small box trucks, and tractor trailers for some of the units that are on the outside. That's what the loading docks are for.
And do we have any idea of how many of these vehicles are going to be coming and going within a day's time, a week's time?
All this was submitted in connection with the traffic impact study that was done by Stonefield Engineering and Design.
Okay.
And that was reviewed by the town's outside consultant and
Okay.
approved.
So what you just went through, we have time to digest this.
So, I mean, I did distribute this to the board, and once I kind of had a chance to really dig through it, I mean, it is a significant document. Did distribute it to the board about a month ago. I mean, if you'd like to take additional time to digest it and consider it, the board is, in your discretion, you can do that.
I don't know.
Well,
A lot of square footage there, boy, with a lot of traffic. I see, that's my biggest concern.
I am aware that some of the board members were not on the board when we made this presentation, but really this is a very unique application because there is nothing like this on the east end of Long Island. The units that are out at Kabreski Airport were designed at a time that the garage door heights are wrong. There's not enough square footage there to, and there's a pent-up demand for something like this out on the east end. The location being in Calverton and affording the opportunity to really service the whole entire east end of Long Island is unique in that regard. This is also a federal opportunity zone, so it's beneficial, in the long term for the region. And also its location being, first of all, it's zoned appropriately in L1, so it is as of right. And we believe that we're really filling a major need that's occurring out for industrial properties, especially here on the eastern Long Island. Do you want to supplement that?
Sure, I mean, just so that everyone understands, the intended usage on the property isn't a distribution center or a, large warehouse box. The smaller user is what this is being built for. So it'll be servicing, vendors, subcontractors, a lot of the people who work in this area, with spaces from 5,000 to 50,000 square feet, that currently don't have locations that they can use. So that there's, from our understanding, zero available space for these people to go to. And with recent laws passing that they can't keep their vehicles outdoors and, other mitigating circumstances, this project, I think, provides.
Little louder, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think I got earphones.
So, like I was saying, the facility is designed for subcontractors and vendors in the area who don't currently have an option. And this will provide them a space to store their vehicles, materials, and to operate out of. That currently doesn't exist anywhere in this area.
So that could be a contractor, but it could also be someone who has, like, say, small manufacturing, say, they do, countertops, right? And they need a space, they have their equipment, have the material come in, they do their final production, and then that can be sold to the public. There's also a commissary there, so that employees can get something to eat, so they don't have to drive all around looking for a place. That'll also diminish traffic. But there's also the opportunity that the material can be brought in by tractor trailer for the loading dock. So it really is a hybrid type of use that really doesn't exist anywhere on Long Island, let alone on the East End. And so there is a market study that was provided to the town planning department and this board. And I wish, and perhaps if you have the opportunity, maybe go back and look at the hearing where we went through. There was public comment too, that we answered all the questions, and it was a really robust and thorough explanation. I did bring notes that I could go through the project from start to finish, if you'd like. But, when you look at, the applicant came in with this project wanting to do something that was really state-of-the-art, and that, not only filled the need, but was something that the town could really be proud of. So, when you look at the renderings, the closest thing out here is really Gabreski, and this will surpass Gabreski in terms of looks, function, and use, in all respects. And also, not to mention providing good tax ratables, for the local school district and whatnot. But a place where businesses can really thrive. I'll put it to you that way.
You're not planning
So
on
if
putting one of those tinfoil statues out front, I hope? Whiskey?
No, and not even a great blue heron either.
I don't think this report is too bad, though. There isn't that much
So,
breakers.
so if I could, I'll refer to rather than get into the use and the uniqueness of the project. The traffic was one of the significant concerns from the board when we had the public hearing on the draft environmental impact statement. Following that hearing, the board adopted a resolution which kind of set forth the additional information and things that needed to be, studied additionally and supplemented in this document. So, comment number 16 from the town was that the FEIS must indicate whether or not the adjusted December 2020 traffic volumes identified on page 7 are the peak month of the year in terms of traffic volumes. If not, the DEIS must use traffic volumes during the peak month of the year. So there is a lengthy, explanation here. And then they did do ATR count data and turning, which is, I believe, automated turning movement. Thursday, October 7th of 2021, they did it from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So that data found that the weekday morning peak occurred from 7:15 to 8:15 a.m. and that the weekday evening peak occurred from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. So now, in terms of this project, it would be assumed that it's going to mainly be, Monday through Friday. Of course, there will be traffic on the weekends, but, during those peak hours during the weekday where you've got the rush hour commute going, and you've got people entering and exiting the site. So they did take turning counts in October of 2021, which pretty far removed from COVID. At that point, the world was kind of getting back together. People were back out on the road. So that was a concern from the board, and it was something that they did address in this document.
Okay, fair enough.
How many units?
It'll depend on the requirements of the tenants. It could be anywhere from 5,000 square foot units to 50,000 square
The
foot.
minimum is 5,000 square feet?
Minimum is 5,000. The maximum would be a full building of 50,000 square feet.
Yeah, and it's being built in phases, as I'm sure you're aware. The first phase is the front building is 226. That includes the commissary, the 1,500 square foot commissary. And then, so, in other words, there'll be a, you know, a ramping up, let's say. But by that time, the intersection of Edwards and Middle Country Road, which has been a problem intersection for quite some time, I've worked on a number of projects in and around that intersection. You know, just the realignment alone of that intersection is huge, let alone the fact that both ways, northbound and southbound, are going to have new left-hand turning lanes. That's a huge plus. And it's not affecting the building on the southeast corner at all. There was a taking line that was already instituted on the west side of Edwards Avenue. So, you know, I think just in terms of traffic that is headed towards Sound Avenue for points east, you know, getting through that, because we all know that it's a major thoroughfare, you know, for points east. So getting north and south from the expressway up to Sound to head east, I think is going to be a huge benefit. Plus, the traffic signal will have a decel lane coming eastbound, and it'll have obviously a left turn lane coming into the property the other way. So I think when you look at that, you know, the slow phasing in of it, the traffic signal, and the improvements on Edwards and Middle Country Road all add up to a nice kind of change in the phasing of any, you know, potential increase, but none of the increases have been identified as being significant, and that the roadway system could be able to handle it.
So the issue of tenancy and occupancy is an interesting question, because right now, this development is being built on spec. To my knowledge, they don't have any specific tenants identified or occupants of the site. So now, the Industrial C zoning district, and I mean, this is really something for the board to consider in its finding statement. The purpose and intent of the Industrial C zoning district is to allow a mix of light industrial, warehouse development, and office campuses in the area between EPCAL and the LIE. Industrial C zoning use district is intended for moderate-sized businesses, generally defined as those with less than 40 employees. Now, I mean, we're not here to go say your business has 41 employees, you can't go in here, but there should be some consideration in the findings of this document that, you know, we don't want to see this entire site as, you know, one business where they've got 400,000 square feet as one user. And I think it is kind of consistent with their intent to develop it with smaller, you know, tenants, 5,000, 10,000 square feet. So that's something really that the board would be considering in its finding statement. Again, they're building this on spec. We don't know exactly what users are going to be in there. So I think that's something that the board would definitely be within its right to maybe establish a limit on, you know, tenant occupancy. You know, again, a 50,000 square foot building being occupied by one tenant, surely they're going to have more than 40 employees. Maybe that's not what the purpose and intent of the Industrial C zoning district is. But again, it's roughly 30 acres, so to say that on 30 acres you can have a business where you have 40 employees, you know, it's kind of limiting.
So if I could, I'd just like to highlight two very important things. One is from a planning perspective, it complies fully with the comprehensive plan. It's located near the Enterprise Park at Calverton, right, and it is a federal opportunity zone. So it is entirely appropriate for where it's being located from a planning perspective. And the second thing I want to talk about is the water district. We've spent the better part of the last, 8 months working with the Riverhead Water District to come up with this map and plan that will allow for not only this project to be supplied potable water and water for any fires, but also it'll create the infrastructure available for any future uses to be able to avail itself of that same infrastructure. So the benefit for the town and the water district with all the problems that have occurred, you know, it really solves a lot of the ills that are happening right now.
So are you saying that the water district is going to put a terminal on that, on your property? Basically a termination point for the water district? In other words, you're bringing water in and water can go out from you? Is that what you're stating?
I'm not sure from a technical point of view. I understand the question. I just know that the storage tanks will be located on water district and town-owned property, and that storage tank will be enough water for not just potable water, but also in the event of any fires could be extinguished by the water being stored in that tank. And the plans of drilling any wells on our property were dispensed with in lieu of this plan. And because the plan really helps solve the problems that the town and the water district are experiencing relative to their issues with water and the DEC. So,
Because as you know, we have problems and we keep approving all of these subdivisions and the water problem, and I'm not sure that it's been addressed, but
Well, I don't think we've, I mean, since I've been here about 6 years, coming up on the 6-year anniversary mark, actually, we've never really reviewed a project where we've got a developer who's willing to, help supply
I agree.
ground storage. So I think, and I know the previous chairman was a big proponent of that, and I think that really put us on the right direction. I mean, we have here now a map and plan that supports, rather than just granting the extension, saying, here's a pipe in the ground, go for water, we've got something that's actually supporting that infrastructure on the back end, rather than kick it down the road. So I think that is
That's
significant.
the good part.
yeah, and it's a tremendous amount of money, I don't have to tell you.
I mean, there's a lot of people building specs in Calverton, all these spec buildings. I mean, it's amazing how many thousands of square feet are going up. I just hope that they'll all be used in some way.
Yeah,
I don't, personally, I don't,
Long Island in general, I mean, I've spoken to some people, Long Island in general, Suffolk County has a lot of, millions of square feet being built on spec.
really,
Yeah.
well,
Where's the commissary located?
right up front, right in the front
I'm
right
just
side.
wondering why you put it in the front. If it's to serve the users, it would be more centrally located possibly.
You wanna take a sip?
I would have to ask our engineers and architects. My understanding, that was
Are you
just the.
trying to get passerbys to use the restaurant?
No,
or-
that's
No,
not
no,
the
no.
intent at all. It really, I think it just makes a lot of sense that it's there because any users of the commissary can park near it in the front. They can grab something, they can go into their unit, and eat their lunch, or they could stay there, and vice versa if they want to stop, grab something, and continue on the road, either way.
What is, I mean, it's gonna be like a franchise thing? or
Yeah, I
what?
just want to talk about the visibility too. You won't even see the commissary from the street because the whole front area is being bermed,
Yeah, I understand.
you know? And the renderings really kind of bear that out too.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
I definitely think, I mean, it'd probably be reasonable, prudent for the board, that the commissary should not be advertised, there should be no, it's like, the zoning doesn't permit a restaurant, that's not what this intent is. So, I mean, if it's not advertised, if there's no, we're not gonna see golden arches out on State Route 25 in Calverton.
No.
As long as it's, the intent, like they've stated, is to have a commissary and it's not advertised, there's no signage for it, it's really would be to serve the tenants of that space.
It's just a matter of convenience, to be honest with you. And I can tell you, as an employer, having a nearby food use, for your employees is tremendous. This way, people don't have to travel around, you don't have to use Uber Eats or one of the services, the software services for
I
that.
think we just have to make sure it's worded properly,
Correct.
Yeah.
when the time comes.
And we would take it under advisement, but obviously we'd be fine with any conditions, relative to that, to making sure that it's for its intended purpose.
choose a good operator that keeps changing the menu because people get tired of the same.
You don't wanna eat tuna fish sandwiches every day.
All right, well, you have a resolution on for today, correct?
Acceptance?
Can we
Any other
move forward?
questions?
No, that's it.
All right.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any comments on the resolutions? Only the resolutions at this time, or what we have on the agenda this evening.
John McAuliffe from Rolling Woods or Roanoke Landing in Riverhead. My comments have to do with the resolution that was just discussed. I want to submit for the record an article from the News Review and read a little bit from it. The article was headlined, "Alleged Russian Mob Ties Follow Industrial Park Development in Calverton." The article opens, "A developer behind a proposed Calverton Industrial Park that planners have described as far and away one of the largest industrial subdivisions the town has seen, end quote, has ties to Russian organized crime, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and a 2013 report from investigators with the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. While no investigation into Arik Kislin's business dealings has ever led to any criminal charges, the Gaming Commission deemed his hotel company's licensing agreement with Caesars a significant investigative issue, quote, in connection with a bid for a casino at the Suffolk Downs racetrack in East Boston. Caesars was later dropped from the bid. We received information from the FBI that Arik Kislin, who is the principal of this project, whose name has not been mentioned, we received information from the FBI that Arik Kislin is in fact known to them and has been linked to various members of Eurasian organized crime. The Gaming
Okay,
Commission
excuse me.
noted in its report.
Excuse me. I don't think that that's appropriate for right now. You're quoting stuff out of a newspaper.
Well, I'll
We're here to
submit the
discuss-
article
we're here-
and go
we're here to
on with
discuss
my
the
own
final
comments.
environmental impact statement.
I'll
We're
go
not here to
on with my
discuss-
own comments. It's a
Sir,
different,
I can only take down one at a time, you're speaking, so.
Okay,
just
sorry.
give me a second. It's okay.
all right.
Yeah, I will say, we're here to discuss a final environmental impact
Correct.
statement. We're not here to discuss anything else.
Of course not. You don't want to discuss this because it's fundamentally a moral issue for this town, whether we want to have this kind of investment coming in for a major project.
Okay, well,
And
nobody's been-
naturally don't want to talk about it.
We're not
The
going to
town
talk
board
about it
doesn't
anymore
want to
this
talk
evening.
about it, but it has to be talked about because otherwise what we face is a major development in and of itself, unless things have
Okay, this is
changed,
your
is ugly.
opinion?
It's my opinion. This is a discussion about the resolution.
Is there anything
I'm
else that
going
you
to
would like to
urge-
discuss?
I'm going to urge that you not proceed on this resolution. I think that what we have heard is that this is desperately needed warehouse space. Well, I don't remember what it was, but in the last week or two, there's been an article about another major warehouse project underway. The whole EPCAL development presumes 1 million square feet of warehouse space put in within the first 2 years. If this project were going into the EPCAL space, it would be far better for the environment than having it smack dab on Middle Country Road. From the last pictures that we saw of it, I don't know how high the berm is going to be, but it's an omnipresent factor. It makes that whole area, degrades that whole area in a way that I think ought to be of concern to the Planning Commission.
Okay, well,
I
thank
think-
you for your
I think
comments.
this argument about breaking it into different parts and not counting the totality of it is absurd. If you have a single owner of the project and they're renting out different parts of it for different purposes, and they have a common commissary, it is a single project, and it's simply a euphemism to talk about it as though we're in a number of different projects. So I think that this is ultimately a problem perhaps that the town board has avoided. I hope the planning board does not avoid it, and this is the article from the News Review.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Good evening, Chairwoman Mosky, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barbara Blass, and I live in Jamesport. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, I have a lot to say, so I hope you bear with me and afford me the patience. Having participated in both the scoping and the DEIS hearings, I am an interested party and hereby submit the following comments on Resolution 2022-80, which accepts HK Ventures FEIS. This FEIS fails to adequately address potential cumulative impacts. The applicant stated in Section 4.4 of the DEIS, part of the document, the applicant included this statement. Quote, "It is recognized that other pending projects in the vicinity of the project site could result in cumulative impacts. Cumulative impacts, as excerpted from the seeker handbook, are those impacts that occur when multiple actions affect the same resources. These impacts can occur when the incremental or increased impacts of an action or actions are added to other past, present, or reasonably foreseeable future actions. Cumulative impacts do not have to be associated with one sponsor or applicant. They may include indirect or secondary impacts, long-term impacts, or synergistic effects. Close quotes. With that in mind, HK Ventures, OSTAD, and North Point are multiple actions impacting the same resources: air, water, ag soils, traffic, economic resources of the town, energy, and all impact community character. One could say our tractors are being replaced by tractor trailers. There are significant short and long-term impacts on the water district from its proposed expansion, the uncertainty of any potential DEC approvals, the timing of any new infrastructure, and the competing demands for water by Riverhead Town residents who are in desperate need of clean water. Additional impacts associated with the PODS expansion and RGR Ventures warehouses proposed along Manor Road have also not been included. Do we know how many diesel tractor trailers from the three major projects could potentially be on our local roads at the same time, affecting not only travel times but our air quality? How will the additional hydrocarbon emissions from tractor trailers and passenger vehicles traveling to and from the potentially 2 million square feet of industrial warehousing impact our air quality? We're in a non-attainment area already and experience frequent air quality advisories. The FEIS neither acknowledges this cumulative impact nor proposes mitigation. All three applicants, again, OSTAD, North Point, and HK Ventures, are expected to apply for IDA benefits. What is the anticipated collective fiscal impact to the taxpayers of Riverhead? Where is the need assessment that justifies over 2 million square feet of industrial warehousing in addition to at least 1 million square feet at EPCAL? Let me remind you, it is all speculative. There's not a single tenant that has been identified by any of these applicants. And just as an aside, there are 3 separate articles in today's Newsday, all having to do with warehousing here on Long Island. One of them contained a quote from Brookhaven's IDA chairperson, who acknowledged the fact that there's a lot of warehousing going on, and they have commissioned a feasibility study to find out what the tipping, just how much speculative warehousing operations and facilities Suffolk County can absorb. I just wanted to throw that in. Further, and from the cumulative assessment standpoint, OSTAD and North Point are both in potential environmental justice areas. This EIS fails to address its proportional and indirect potential impacts to this EJA. Collectively, the aforementioned omissions are significant enough to require the preparation of a supplemental EIS. There's also a procedural problem here. You, as the lead agency for those 3 major projects currently under seeker review, have also met the threshold for segmentation. The simple test for segmentation includes but one affirmative response to any one of these scenarios. Purpose: is there a common purpose or goal? Yes, warehouse industrial development. Timing: may these actions occur on or about the same time? Yes, they're all currently in seeker, subdivision, and site plan review. Location: are the projects in common geographic area? Yes, they're all within the Calverton hamlet, no more than a couple of miles apart. Impacts: are there common impacts expected? Yes, we just listed those in the cumulative impact section. Remember, only one yes would result in a positive test for segmentation, and we have all 4. You've provided no justification for the independent review of these projects, which the seeker law allows under very certain specific circumstances. Independent review of these projects or segmentation is contrary to proper seeker review, is inconsistent with procedures as outlined in Part 617, and is in violation of the environmental conservation law. These projects have to be evaluated together and their impacts assessed cumulatively. HK Ventures FEIS revealed both water and soil contamination at the subject site. The applicant does not provide a definitive plan for management and handling of the estimated 95,000 cubic yards of contaminated soil. Simply categorizing and handling the materials in accordance with prevailing regulations is not mitigation. Water sampling detected PFAS, compounds PFOA and PFOS in concentrations exceeding the New York State DEC guidance values in 2 sampling wells. It was assumed that the source of the contamination was from either Sky Materials or EPCAL, and the applicant stated that no further monitoring would be conducted. Is this in the best interest of those residents who are down gradient of this site, who are on private wells? Finally, but no less important, let me read what is stated on the cover sheet of the FEIS. Quote, "This document, together with the draft environmental impact statement, is the final environmental impact statement, FEIS, for the proposed application. Copies are available for public review and comment at the offices of the lead agency at 201 Howell Avenue, Riverhead, New York, as well as at the office of the town clerk and the Riverhead Library located at 330 Court Street in Riverhead, New York, 11901. The FEIS is also available for review online at, and indicated the town's website address. All comments on the FEIS should be submitted to the lead agency for consideration in the finding statement. Filing date, May 25th, 2022. That statement, with that filing date, would suggest that we, the public, had, since May 25th, to review this document. As it was already stated, look at the size of it. When in fact, it was available to the public in its entirety yesterday, August 3rd, 2022. You want to hear what happened in the interim? After your planning board meeting on June 2nd, I asked Mr. Murphy about the status of the FEIS because it was coming upon a year since the hearing on the DEIS. He wasn't aware of what had happened. He asked Mr. Bergman, who responded the department had just recently received it. And that would have made sense considering the time frame. On June 29th, 2022, and I will submit this copy, I emailed Mr. Murphy and Mr. Bergman again, inquiring about the availability of the document for public review. I'll provide you a copy of the email. I received no response. On or about mid-July, I went to the town clerk's office and asked about whether they had a copy, and I was informed they had nothing on file. Who made the decision to sit on this document for 2.5 months and why? The public was denied an opportunity to thoroughly examine this FEIS. I did this, whatever I could do, in 36 hours. This is grossly contrary to the spirit and intent of SECR, which is a public participatory process, not some exclusive interaction between the developer and the planning department. At the very least, this resolution should be tabled to afford the public ample opportunity to have input into this resolution, accepting the FEIS, which I've just illustrated is defective and incomplete. It would also allow the lead agency, together with your council, time to determine the proper course of action to address the serious procedural and substantive issues outlined this evening. I expect an inquiry as to the reasons behind the lack of transparency and the individual or individuals responsible. I thank you very much for your time and attention. And here's a copy.
Good evening, Takwi Turchin, Greater Calverton Civic Association President.
Sorry, just state your name again, please.
Yes, Takwi Turchin.
Thank you.
Sure. After all that eloquence, I'm not going to add to it. There's quite a lot of detail that I'm not even privy to, really. But I do want to draw your attention to a letter that our civic wrote, I think it was in fall of 2020, to the town board, requesting an industrial moratorium because of a great number of industrial projects new at that time. And I just want to make sure that that's brought to bear tonight. I did hear one of the board mention that, gee, that's quite a lot of industrial subdivisions going up in Calverton. And they've been looming and hovering for a long time. I did read the Newsday article, and I did just send it to you, Chairwoman, by email. I only found one article. It was demand from Amazon and others fueling plans for 10 million square feet of new warehouses on Long Island, and that broke today. Without going into further detail, I would like to emphasize the cumulative impact to Calverton's character has already has taken the character has taken a great big hit, and I'm asking that you again take a cumulative impact look at Ostad. I believe it's North Point, right? They just purchased 37 acres in December. They want to put up a tremendous warehouse. It's HK Ventures with the one before you tonight, and also the pod warehousing storage on across from the Hoden Farm are only the newest ones that I can tell you about. I don't even know what's in the pipeline right now, and that's what actually what happens to us is we're in a bit of a reactionary mode as the public because we don't see these things right away. We don't see them, and we also don't see them presented to us on the website as in a timeline together, not just links to each of the projects, but there isn't any visual on, okay, here's where everybody is now, here's where their next step is. That would be really helpful to us. I do also want to mention that, yeah, I thought it was 48 hours that the public had to look at this FEIS. Meanwhile, I probably wouldn't even be able to get through 70 pages in a month. So okay. I'm not a professional in that sense, but I am aware of the number of projects hovering over Calverton and changing the character of Calverton. I did want to mention also that in listening to the applicant, I caught words like solving the ills of the area. I really don't see this project as solving ills. I see that there's a water problem in our area. There are 64 homes over in the Maryville section of Riverhead who have contaminated wells that do not have water service at this time from our district or from any other district. There's also about 20 or so homes in the Canoe Lake Drive area. Same problem. So with as much as they would like to pay for and fund their project and take care of their water need, I don't know that that map and plan really addresses the entire need of all the residents. My last detail is asking about the energy efficiency of the building. And I'm not sure if this is the proper time to bring it up, so please let me know. There's a change in the pitch of the roof, and I believe there were solar panels going to be put on the top of it. How does the change in the pitch of the roof affect those solar panels? And that's probably the most minor aspect of the energy efficiency of the building. I'm looking at, and I'm not hearing the term net zero. And that's really something that our current comprehensive plan, not our 2003 plan, which the applicant said that they fit so nicely into. We're in suspended mode right now of completing our 2020 update to that plan. So I'd like to see something addressing the net zero effect of the building. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else to come up to comment on the resolutions?
Make a motion that we move resolution number 76 for Dish Wireless at 1035 Pulaski Street. So moved.
Vote please. Bear? Oh, sorry. O'Day? Yes. Nenaro? Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski? Yes.
Move resolution 77, Pitsinski lot line modification, classify a lot line modification, to modify a lot line, so moved.
Second motion?
Vote, please. O'Day?
Yes.
Nenaro? Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
Move resolution number 78, which is the Pipshinsky lot line modification, to schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Second.
Vote, please. O'Day?
Yes.
Nenaro? Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
Resolution number 07922, Jason's Vineyard Outdoor Patio. Resolution classify an action pursuant to secret of assumed lead agency, issue a negative deck, and grant administrative site plan approval for administrative site plan application entitled Jason's Vineyard Outdoor Patio.
Second motion?
Vote, please. O'Day?
Yes.
Nenaro?
Aye.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes. On this resolution, 80 for HK Ventures.
I'll move. Did you want to discuss it?
I was going to table it.
It's up to you.
Yeah, table it.
Second to table?
Vote, please. O'Day?
Yes.
Nenaro?
Aye.
Nacesky?
No.
Woski, yes.
I'll move resolution 81, Holly Tree Lane minor subdivision, to classify a minor subdivision application to type 2 action. So moved.
Vote, please. O'Day?
Yes.
Nenaro?
Aye.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
Meeting minutes of July 21.
Get a second?
I'll second it. I'll second
Oh, sorry, thank you. Let's move on to public comments on all matters, please.
Good evening, Charles Cuddy. I represent, as you may know, the owner of 680 Elton Street. And that owner has been before this board since last October. And initially, we had Sid Harvey as a tenant. And then we came in with a new tenant and combined those two. So we had both Sid Harvey and the Berlin Yossi Firearms Academy. Tonight, I believe there was a resolution calling a public hearing for Berlin Yossi Firearms Academy, but it was removed from the agenda. I think that was an error. The reason it was removed was because there was a concern by the supervisor that there was retail use at this site by Yossi Firearms. That is not true. I would like to hand up to you the amended site plan application, which makes it very clear that there will be no guns whatsoever sold at this site.
Mr. Cuddy, upon submission of this amended site plan application, I wanted the opportunity to be able to speak with our legal counsel, who is not available at this time, and I did not wish to move forward until I was able to have that discussion with her and along with the rest of the board. So my apologies to you. I understand your frustration, but
Well, if I can voice a little bit more of my frustration.
please do.
And I don't oppose certainly
Charlie,
investigation.
pull the mic.
I'm sorry, I don't oppose your investigation of the application. But this is a site plan application, and it's not a use application. The use has already been determined by the public administrator. I was told that the reason we couldn't have an earlier scheduled public meeting was because this month, for the entire month, the planning board attorney was not available. So what's happened is not only were we set aside for last month, but we're now being set aside for this month. And I think there's a fairness that goes along with the process, because this is procedural. This isn't substantive. No one is asking you to approve or disapprove. We're simply asking you to hold a hearing so that we can make our case, so to speak, about what is the proper thing for the site plan to address. And we were prepared to do that. We are prepared to do it. So I'm a little taken back that there's concern to discuss what I think is a procedural matter, because you had previously noticed this matter for a hearing, and you did so very simply, noting that it was a site plan application. And there was no concern about the use, because the use is a permitted use. Firearms range is a use that has been accepted. So I understand that you might have concern, but I'm not sure why you couldn't have a public hearing. That's my concern.
Okay, our intent at this time is to get this on the agenda for you as soon as possible.
Okay, it's just that, but as I say,
I understand.
it's very hard when somebody's trying to fix up a building and gets tenants and then gets put off. I mean, I don't know that that's good for the community either. I would hope that maybe you could, in the meantime, talk to the town attorney, who was present this afternoon. I met with the supervisor, who does not have, by the way, any objection to the board proceeding, and indicated that to me, and spoke to Mr. Murphy, too. So, and the town attorney was at that meeting. So perhaps you could discuss it with the town attorney also, because I don't know of any reason you can't have a procedural matter before this board.
Okay.
So I would
look
ask you
further
to
into
consider that, please.
I will consider that, and I
Because
will-
there could be another meeting when you have your next work session, and you could, even at that time, at least authorize an advertisement so we could get ahead and have the public hearing. Okay, I would appreciate that.
I will do that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that wishes to come up and comment?
So if I could, I would just like to make a couple of comments to the board for their consideration. The document here is the FEIS that was submitted by the applicant towards the end of May. Ms. Blass is right, we've had this document for a while. It is voluminous, it is very tough to get through. I'm gonna go through, read a couple of passages out of the SECR handbook, which is the guiding document on how SECR is conducted. Does SECR require a hearing on a final EIS? No. Neither the SECR statute nor the regulations provide for a hearing on a final EIS. Is there a comment period for final EISs? No. SECR requires that the lead agency and all other involved agencies must wait for at least 10 days after the filing of the final EIS before making their findings and final decisions on the action. This period is not a comment period, but instead allows time for the involved agencies and any interested parties to consider the final EIS. While concerned parties or other agencies may comment in writing to the lead agency on the final EIS, the lead agency has no obligation to respond to comments in the final EIS. So we have a document that, for all intents and purposes, has not yet been accepted by the lead agency and has not been noticed. So all things considered, this is, for lack of a better phrase, a draft final environmental impact statement until the board accepts it and distributes it for public comment. So to the point of a supplemental EIS. The supplemental EIS, by its virtue and its nature, suggests that, and I'll read it out, a supplemental EIS provides an analysis of one or more significant adverse environmental impacts that were not addressed or were inadequately addressed by a draft or a final EIS. We had a draft environmental impact statement which was accepted by the board. As of right now, we do not have an accepted final impact statement. We have a draft document that has not yet been accepted by the board, and right now will not be distributed and will not be made available and will not be sent to involved agencies. So we're kind of in limbo. To say that there's a supplemental, it's like SECR is not meant to be this never-ending process that you can't get out of. But by the logic of a new application came in, pump the brakes, we have to stop this. So I'll leave it at that. Right now, the board does not have a final environmental impact statement accepted. It will not be noticed. So we're sort of in limbo now.
I understand that, but when I'm hearing that the community has not had access to, until yesterday, from what's being said by
Again,
more than
it's-
one person.
Until the lead agency accepts it and files the final environmental impact statement, that, for intents and purposes, it's a draft document. And again, SECR does not require hearings on final EISs. This is right out of the handbook. So in the position we're in, the lead agency does not have a final EIS accepted and it will not get filed on this project. I mean, we can, Eileen is not here, but, you know, we can consult with the planning board attorney, but the position we're in right now is that there is no accepted final EIS.
Okay. Chair, may I have a moment?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm totally familiar with the seeker handbook. I was not asking for a hearing on an FEIS. I was not making comments on an FEIS. I was commenting on a resolution that you had tonight that was going to deem a document complete. This is an open seeker process. I was not able, most of the people didn't even know that the document was online at all, even as of yesterday. How is the public supposed to participate in something like a resolution that's supposed to evaluate an EIS for completeness? It's a process, and to say we're going to pump the brakes because a new project came in, those projects all were in some form or another, and it was incumbent upon the planning department to make the applicant and the board, the lead agency, you, aware that these all projects all affect the same. I went through the list of things that you, as a lead agency, should have been made aware of in terms of cumulative impacts and segmentation. Yes, you're right, there's nothing that is adopted now. I suggested that you consult and find out if indeed that document was eligible, accurate, complete enough to be considered adopted. And my opinion was that it was not. And I have a right to that opinion, and I have a right to go through that document and participate in the process. That's the whole purpose of seeker. That's the whole purpose, is to engage a public participation so that bureaucrats and planners and everyone else doesn't make the rules without the people that are most affected having a say in the process. I was addressing a resolution that was on the agenda for this evening that required thorough review of documents that were available in their entirety yesterday. And I find that offensive, and that's the reason that I made the statement that I made. I appreciate your tabling the document, and I would hope that you would consult with counsel as to how to proceed. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, if I may. So I believe that the...
State your name again, sir?
Sure, Keith Brown.
Thanks.
So I believe the people that are here tonight trying to speak out against the application are trying to say that there's inconsistencies with the procedure that's been conducted by the town relative to SECRA. And I'd just like to point out that the public participated in the scoping. The public participated by having a comment period, a written comment period, to the draft environmental impact statement that was submitted by the applicant. Those comments that we got back, we then responded to. They are all included in the draft environmental impact study, as well as the FEIS, the final environmental impact study. The purpose of tonight was just to accept the FEIS, simply. Nothing more, nothing less. And the reason for that is because the environmental conservation law and the SECRA rules and regulations affords the same people who are objecting to the application 10 days for a written comment period on the FEIS. So if you were to assume what Ms. Blass is saying, then it relegates the 10-day comment period after this a nullity. There's no point in having it. Yet, the board has made its decision. We understand that, the applicant. We presume that the board would like a little more time to speak to its counsel to make sure that the procedures of SECRA are being followed to the letter of the law. We have no issue with that. We understand that. That is the prudent thing to do. But I'm not going to sit in this chair and listen to comments to say that your staff did something wrong when it comes to following the rules and regulations of SECRA, when your staff and this town attorney's office has done everything to ensure that the exact procedures of SECRA have been followed to the letter. So with that, the next step after the public comment period would then be to adopt the finding statement. And that finding statement will be a culmination of everything that has been said and submitted to the town relative to this application. But Ms. Blass and McAuliffe, thank you, had an opportunity to submit public comment within 10 days. If the board had done so and accepted it tonight, that's their opportunity to comment. So with that, I think you have a good understanding of our position. We look forward to hearing back from the town as to when will we be on next for acceptance of the FEIS. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Meeting minutes.
You want to move the minutes, Dick? Minutes? Minutes. You were anxious before.
July 21st. Meeting minutes of the board. What do you want me to do?
Move.
Nothing.
Move the minutes.
Move them.
Move the minutes? Oh, yeah. I moved the minutes until July 21st.
Okay, there you go, good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Do you have any other business? Correspondences? Our next meeting date is Thursday, August 18th, 2022 at 3 PM. Thank you, and everyone have, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, make the motion.
Motion to close the meeting, so moved.
Meeting is closed. Everyone have a good evening.
Yep, everybody have